Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to your favorite St. Louis sports podcast, The Lunatics. I'm Tyler, your host, and we've got some fun updates here for the Blues and Cardinals going on. The Cardinals have had a busy offseason already, and despite John's lack of interest here in the screen, we are pretty excited about the things that are going on, as well as have some concerns and thoughts on what should be going forward. John, what are your thoughts?
Well, my first thought is, you know how every time you open a citywide, it like explodes in your face. That's basically
I
what just
do.
happened with this beer, and that did not happen the first time I opened it. So I was a little surprised and totally, zoned out on everything you said at the beginning. Oh, there we go.
Yeah, no, it's interesting you say that. Now it kind of makes me want to go dig a Citywide out of the fridge, but I don't know if I'm quite ready to start slurping down the foam tonight as I usually am. So
Just shake one of those bad boys. That's not going to sit. Just shake one of those bad boys up and just
yeah,
shotgun it.
that's a really good motion for you there.
Yeah.
So in the Blues corner, short update here for the Blues. So the Blues still seem to be the same team they've been all year, right? They either show up and they are lights out and look like a absolute playoff contender, or they do what they did tonight against Minnesota and we lose 3-1. I mean, special teams has you would think it has to get better, but it's just not. And
Well, I mean,
it's painful to watch. I mean, we had the epitome of our special teams this year. Third period today against the Wild, we had close game, 4-minute power play, and we get 0 goals.
right. Well, it's the same thing we've been saying kind of all year. We think at some point Kyrie is going to start scoring goals and we're going to be less picky about the fact that he doesn't play much defense. But that also has not happened yet. I mean, the Blues have been just this very streaky team all season long. Whenever I was trying to think through what we were going to talk about tonight, the thought that came to my mind is, okay, they're the same Blues they've always been. They're good and then they're bad, and we've always known that they're ugly. So that's just who they are.
What are you talking
Like
about? Sonny is a beautiful man in some parts of the world.
in Northern Europe, yes.
I just want to go ahead and throw that out there. I mean, no, it's tough and it's frustrating because we see the team that they can be, but there are some good things that the Blues have going for them, right? One of their players wasn't just released amid a scandal of sleeping with another player's mom, so that's
Okay,
fun.
wait. So that real? Because I keep seeing that on different meme pages, and I haven't had a chance to look into is that actually real or is that
So
just like a
the
joke
article
that's
that I
going around?
saw, the article that I saw today was the team stating that there was not. I didn't read the whole article. I clicked on it and then got busy with the kiddos.
Sure.
But the headline of the article was that the Blackhawks are stating they did not release him because of his relationship with Connor Bedard's mom.
Hmm. Hmm. Someone paid him a lot of money to seduce Connor's mom, and then screw up that kid's whole career.
You know, the best part about when I'm thinking all of this is is this what happens in hockey's rookie hazing?
Yeah.
If the guy's mom's single,
I mean, this
because you
just
hear
takes
about all
that.
the crazy things that the car the Wayno does and things, right?
Right.
And theirs is pretty harmless, like you need to find a hamburger phone or
Sure.
going out to dinner and sticking them with the bill or whatever. But this is pretty harmless to Bedard technically. And unless Bedard just doesn't want a new dad.
He probably does not want or need a new dad, but it just makes that Zach Wilson stuff from a few years ago so mild in comparison. You
Right.
know,
Oh
it's just
man.
it's so out there that I was like, that's got to be fake. That can't be a real story, but apparently it is.
Hey
Um,
man, in the world of professional hockey, anything can happen.
there's so one of our friends hates hockey. Skylar, shout out Skylar. I don't know if you're still listening. Hates the NHL. Finds it kind of gimmicky and basically a step up of from and there's not necessarily anything wrong with this, but a step up from WWE. basically like mid 90s WWE. And this just like confirms it. Like it completely supports
Oh,
his argument.
this is perfect. I mean, this fits right into mid 90s WWE era. You know,
Mm-hmm.
the new kid who's the star
Right.
on the tour comes
Right.
in and then finds out that the old vet's sleeping with his mom.
Yeah.
And then the old vet
Like,
gets kicked off. Oh
right.
yeah, no,
The
it's
storylines write
perfect.
themselves. Like, God. Anyway. Um,
That being said, I think the big thing for the Blues is, do they stay close enough that they look at making moves towards the deadline? If they're close, to maybe push them into contention, or if they're on that bubble, do they look to maybe sell a piece or two to continue the rebuild? I don't know what the right move is. I don't know what your thoughts are.
well, I mean, right now you're still in a go for it position because they're still in the number one wild card spot, right? And I think
Mhm.
anytime you're in a playoff spot, like you're not a seller. If you're within, contention for a playoff spot, you're not selling, you're buying. Um, so when is the deadline for the NHL? Do you know off the
I
top
want
of
to
your
say it's
head?
February, like the
Right.
second week of February or something,
Okay.
right around
So
Valentine's Day, right around
right.
when Bedard's mom is supposed to get some more
Some
flowers and chocolates,
flowers.
I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I get you. I get you. Well, that means that it's like approaching like decision making time, right? Like you have to
Yeah,
start like identifying what you need. And we're
it's
what? We're
later than I
20.
thought. It's
Okay.
March 8th.
Got an extra couple of weeks, but we're 21 games into the season, I think now. Like that's roughly a quarter of the way in. Like
Hmm.
we should know what we need to change,
Yes.
and who we want to target. And I don't know necessarily who we can target, who's realistic to get from other teams. But Army should know who he wants at this point, or he should know what he's looking for at least.
And I have no doubt that Army does. So it wouldn't surprise me either if we're borderline, if we really stand pat and maybe make a small move or two, but nothing that really shakes up the ranks,
Sure. Sure.
knowing that this is was ideally going to be a rebuilding year for us to try to get back into contention. But it's I don't know if they end up going for it, if if we get a hot streak and they decide, what, we need to go for it, what is that piece that they need? I think it's a unless Cairo proves me it wrong, we need another at least one more forward who can play a full 200-foot game.
Yeah. I mean, the thing about that is Kairu, you can live with Kairu not being a 200-foot player if he's scoring a lot of goals and if you can support him with the pieces around him. And I don't think we're at that point right now. Um, he does have 13 points, which is not horrible, but not what he should have for what he's being paid and for what his expected place on the team is.
But you're talking 13 points a quarter way through the season. That's 52 points for $8 million a year, and you're getting
Right.
no defensive
That's what I'm
contribution.
saying. Yeah. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Like, it's okay, except for the context of how much we're paying him and the fact that we get no defensive contribution from him. Um, so yeah, we're gonna need more from him, but like we've said that every episode we've talked about the Blues so far this year. Like we need more from Jordan Kyrou to be competitive. Well, maybe not to be competitive, but to achieve our goals. We're already competitive,
To be a competitor, to be a legitimate competitor,
right? A
we need more from
contender,
Cairo.
a
A
contender.
contender, to be
Yeah,
considered a contender.
yeah,
That's a
yeah.
good way to look at it.
But
Are
that's
you a
all I've got.
contender or a pretender? We're gonna have to start that as we get
Oh,
later into the season.
oh, I like that. The headlines write themselves. So do
They
the
do.
episode titles.
The episode title, as we usually come up with at the end of these episodes, usually comes from something stupid said during the episode. My hope is still currently for something to do with Bedard's mom, but we'll see how that rolls as the episode continues.
That's, I'll be brainstorming while we talk about it. But speaking about being a pretender or a contender next year, okay, the Cardinals have gone out and made some moves.
They have. I really want. I mean, you and I have messaged some.
Yeah.
I want to hear your thoughts, and then I do want to highlight one thing. So I figured out, and I sent this to you, John,
Mm-hmm.
the moment that Mo decided he wanted Gibson to be a pitcher for the Cardinals. He saw how well Gibson was able to elevate our team when he gave up 4 home runs back to back to back to back. And I think he knew, you know what, if we get the chance, we have to sign this guy.
Right. I like how you say that you figured it out when it was a tweet that someone else did, but I love the
No,
shameless
so the
self-plug.
the tweet was, "This is the guy we signed." And my
Uh,
comment that I sent it to you was, "This must have been the moment that
oh,
Mo
gotcha.
decided to sign him."
What? Okay, so I saw it elsewhere after you sent it to me, and someone else made the same like comment. So I just kind of presumed it was the original, since two people made like the exact same comment about it.
I'm
But
sure there's a lot of people making that comment about it.
right, right. I mean, it's a way to get your name noticed, right? I mean, how many pitchers can say that they gave up back to back to back to back home runs? Other than St. Louis's own Kyle Gibson, signing number two, technically, I think.
Yes,
Yes,
because they signed
yes,
Lynn first.
right. So we made 3 signings. We signed Lance Lynn. Welcome back. We're hyped about that one because we just love Lance Lynn, even if he's not as good as he once was. Kyle Gibson, and then the big one, Sonny Gray. You want to just go in chronological order? Let's talk about Lance Lynn first, or do you want me to just go through on my thoughts? Because you did say you wanted to hear my thoughts, and I
I want to hear
didn't
your
give them.
thoughts, and then I'm going to interject and probably argue with you because I may or may not agree with you at various points here.
Okay. Okay. First off, we now have 3 guys that can throw a lot of innings next year, right? 4 guys. Okay. Right. But 3 new guys who can throw a lot of innings next year. Um, but, but here's my problem. Okay. Lance Lynn was not great last year but was, okay to good for the few years before. Okay.
Hmm?
That's based off of ERA where I'm saying that, right? Last year he had a 5.7 ERA, year before 3.99, year before that 2.7. Kyle Gibson, I think, has only pitched under like a 4 ERA like 3 times in his career. Yeah, has not been hot, but they have both been better this past year than what we had. Okay. For as many 1-run games as we lost, getting a couple of pitchers with a 1 ERA less than what we had before could be the difference we need. I don't know. I'm not Mozeliak, but I was a little underwhelmed by the first 2 moves. I get that they're locker room moves. I get that they're durability moves. I do like that they're 1-year options for Lynn and Gibson. So we sign them for 1 year, and if we wanted to, we can renew them and bring them back for a second year, because that allows us to basically be able to go into next year's pitching market again and then make another upgrade. Which when you're talking about, flipping 3 out of your 5 starters, like that's flexibility that's very helpful to have. But I was underwhelmed by those 2. Sonny Gray was exciting. I'm very happy with that move. I'm happy with the price. I'm happy with the duration. I'm happy with the player. I've always been a big fan of who he is and what he brings. And he has been getting better. But I think last year was probably it was practically Sonny Gray's peak. And I don't know if he's necessarily going to give us that. And that kind of means to me that he's probably going to be at best like what really is a number 2 starter on a decent to good rotation.
See, I agree that that's probably like the best version of Sonny Gray that was last year. Um, but I think if you look at the underlying numbers and how he's evolved as a pitcher, If you've listened to some of the interviews he's done, I mean, the guy he doesn't take days off. He doesn't take time off
Right. No,
because he knows that he's an older pitcher. He knows that if he
right.
does, it's going to take that much longer to get ready. He's adjusted the way he does, and he does. I agree. He's probably a number two guy long over the next few years. I don't think he's a true like ace in the hole type pitcher. But on a good staff, he is a solid number two, and he's going to be that guy who's going to help get you those wins you need. I think the increase of his sweeper pitch
Right.
last
That's
year,
what
he
I
like
was going to
doubled the
say.
usage.
Right.
That was a huge
Yeah.
piece for him, and completely revamped the way he pitches. He's never been an overpowering guy. And because of that, he did have more speed, right? He did have, when guys are younger, they've got a little more arm strength, a little more velocity usually, but
Well, yeah,
he
but he
did
was
not.
never a velocity guy,
Correct.
right?
And so
Like,
he had to learn how to pitch early on. I mean, he averages right at a strikeout an inning, so he's not all
right.
swing and miss, but he's not going to give up a lot.
And that's the other thing about Lance Lynn. Lance Lynn does still get strikeouts and doesn't really allow a lot of walks, I don't think. Uh, but he did give up a lot of hits. Gibson gave up a lot of hits too.
Michaelis gave up the most hits.
Michaelis
Three.
gave up a lot
So
of hits.
three of the top five pitchers and hits allowed last year
Mhm.
were Michaelis, Gibson, and Lance Lynn.
Right, right. I've got Sonny Gray's pitch savant up or baseball savant up right now. And yeah, you and I were going to say the same thing about that sweeper. He did double his use for it basically. 2022 was a 10.3% of his pitches. Last year was 20.4. He actually was throwing harder last year, at least on his fastball, with not much, but over the course of a season maybe. But yeah, I mean, wow, he's got a 6 pitch mix. Jesus
Mm-hmm.
Christ.
The guy, and that's why he plays, right? I mean, the guy,
Right,
if he doesn't have the feel, he's on any given day, he only truly probably needs the feel for three of his pitches.
right,
So if he's having an off day, he's gonna have something he can pull out
right.
of his bag, and I think that's where, going back to Wayno, on the rest of those days you make your money,
Hmm.
on all those days in the middle, he's got the stuff and he's got the tools in the bag to make that work. And I think Sonny Gray is somebody I was really excited to see us sign. I just don't want him to be the headliner of our offseason.
Right, right. Well, so I heard a rumor and I sent it to you that supposedly the Cardinals could be in on Yamamoto still, or someone else, because it sounds like they've been trying to shop Steven Matz around, um, which I don't think that's the worst thing for everyone involved. Matz has not really been what we expected him to be for us, and if he goes somewhere else and he's successful, like I would be very happy for him, but there's really not a lot of patience for Steven Matz, I think, among the fan base at this point. And that's not really fair to him. And it's not really fair to us either, I don't think. Um, One thing that we did not talk about that I did want to mention, though, while I was thinking about it, with Lynn, obviously, Cardinals history, like we all know who he was and his experience with our team. But Kyle Gibson is from Missouri, went to Mizzou, I think lives in Franklin County in the off season still. So I mean, like he gets it. He gets what Cardinals baseball is about, and we've heard forever that he's like arguably like the greatest teammate in the league. Like he's a team first guy. You combine that with Lance Lynn and Sonny Gray's intensity and work ethics, and you're changing the culture around your team, which I think was important based on how this team was competing last year. I did want to say those, but if we shop Matt and open up another spot in the rotation, who do you want to see them go for?
I mean, in a perfect world, obviously you want Yamamoto. That's the guy.
That's the
If
guy.
you're signing a free agent, you want Yamamoto. Second place to me is still Monty.
Sure.
You get Monty. He's a workhorse. He's a guy who can head the rotation into the postseason. You have a 1-2 of Monty and Sonny Gray, and that's a solid 1-2 punch postseason, regular season, everywhere. If you're going the trade route, it depends on what you have to give up to get there, and what you're willing to give up to get there. Obviously, a Dylan Cease, if the White Sox are really looking for prospects and not necessarily MLB ready people, go get yourself Dylan Cease to headline that rotation. You've got Logan Gilbert in Seattle, which they may become more of an option because it's sounding more and more like Blake Snell really wants to go to Seattle, which would make Logan Gilbert more available than what he is currently if Snell actually ends up there. Now, that's rumors. I'm not saying that's what happens,
Right.
but
That would be such a bad move on Seattle's part unless they got like an absolute haul. Like,
yeah. And to pull Gilbert out obviously is going to take significantly more. That's where
right.
we're going to start talking Gorman or one of our other young studs. And I don't know that we're ready to do that. I think Glass now is more likely to be somebody that we would trade for, and could be another option. I don't know again if that's the route they'll go. I don't know where we'll end up, but I think they need another true number one. And the one other guy that I still think, and he's still out there, and I would love to see us sign, and would make even more sense for us to sign with these 2 1-year deals, is Brandon Woodruff.
Yeah, I agree.
Brandon. So, for those of you who didn't listen to our last podcast or don't keep up as much with baseball, Brandon Woodruff has been an absolute monster for the Milwaukee Brewers. He's had some injuries the last couple of years, and that's led him to be released by them, DFA'd, because they didn't want to pay his $12 million salary. There's a chance he may not pitch this coming year, but if you can get him under contract to get him healthy and not have the pressure of having him pitch, that's going to open up that opportunity, because we've got guys that, hey, you know what? They're going to give us innings this year. We've got the rotation plugged, and Woodruff gives us somebody for 25 and beyond.
Right. And he's a lot younger than everyone else in the rotation too, right? So I think I saw that the average age of our rotation right now is 35, and Brandon Woodruff is going into like his age 31 season, if I remember right. So like, not that that's young, but that's still significantly younger than the other guys. And he's been good every year. I've got his baseball reference page up right now, and it's every year is good except for, year one when he made 5 starts. So, or excuse me, eight starts. Excuse me. Those 3 made a big difference. But other than that, he's been just outstanding. And he would be a big get for us. And like you said, those 1-year options, they really give us a lot of flexibility to bridge to him. Or if it's looking like he's going to come back towards the end of next year, maybe we ship one of the guys at the deadline somewhere. I really would like it if we could go out and get Brandon Woodruff. I think he's available inexpensively because of the injury concern on the free agent market. I know there's been a lot of chat in addition to Dylan Cease about Tyler Glasnow from the Rays. I'm less enthused about that, not because of his skill, but because he also has injury concerns. And I think he's on his last year of control. So I'm really not as big of a fan of that. Like I want security. I want good pitching over several years.
I agree. I think, again, it just depends on what it takes to get that player, right? If Glasnow comes cheap enough, then okay, he's worth the gamble. I heard somebody at one point joking about just giving O'Neill to them. They can have our injured player, and we'll take their injured player. We'll just do a swap.
Everyone wins. But that's honestly not. I mean, Tyler Glasnow is worth more than one Tyler O'Neill. Like, let's be clear about that. But like, that's not the worst thing. You throw a Tyler O'Neill in and a couple of prospects that the Rays like that we don't know are good, but the Rays do. So we let them have them because we're not going to play them anyway. And we see what happens.
And you brought this up a minute ago, but I wanted to highlight something else that I thought was really interesting with the way they're putting together the rotation right now is the age and experience. And the innings, right? So we currently have 4 guys on our staff who pitched 180 plus innings last year. Do you know the last team that had 4 guys in a season that pitched 180 plus innings?
I do not know.
2016 Cubs.
Oh, that team was a little successful, right? They went
Yeah,
out and did some things.
they did some things. So consistency on the mound is important. I think what's interesting to me with the leadership, the veterans presence, the experience that they have is we do have some young guys that we're high on, that the Cardinals are high on, or they would have already probably traded them. And how does this, if those guys get called up, how do these players impact that development and try to help show some of these younger pitchers how to be big leaguers? And I think that could be really, really important moving forward as well. And
Right.
I don't think it can be understated. Now, do I think Kyle Gibson's going to be the guy who's going to get the ball in game one of a playoff series? God, I hope not, because we're either that
No.
guy has completely redone his entire career in this season is having the season, otherworldly season, or we're in for a world of hurt in that first game. Um,
Right.
but
Well,
what I'm still concerned with is like we still have, so we've done all of this, and when we're talking about trades, we still have a gluttony of position players that we can't even all get on the field.
right.
So that's where we still have to sort that out, and it's hard to say who's even going to be starting for the Cardinals in certain positions until we actually know who's going to be on the field. Obviously, you're
Right.
not getting rid of Newt is an international star and is somebody who can help you recruit some of the bigger names in the game. But
Well,
what else do you do?
so I'm glad you mentioned Newt and his international presence because there was a press conference that Mozeliak had last week where they talked about, well, have you looked into signing Yamamoto just because of the business impact he could have? And Mozeliak, gave his typical GM bullshit answer, which like, whatever, like, of course we're looking into it. Everything's a business move here, right? Sure. But on Thanksgiving, my cousins and I were actually talking about that the game has always been popular in Japan and it's growing incredibly fast there. We already have one of the most popular stars in Japan for their national team. Not that you can really call it a national team, but you know what I mean. Their World Baseball Classic team with Newt. And if we were to add Yamamoto to that, we'd probably become almost immediately the de facto most popular MLB team in Japan. And that's, that from a brand perspective, like it probably pays for itself at that point. The other thing though is you mentioned that we have so many position players that we don't know what we're going to do with. I think that's especially true with potential outfield players. I think the infield is a little bit more secure. But you got a few guys that can be flexible and play either or type of things, but we really have a lot of outfield players, and I think we have a solid block of prospects in the middle infield, especially that probably aren't going to make it to the big leagues with us because they're blocked. So, I mean, now's the time to sell. Like we have urgent needs. Like we can move some of these guys on and start developing the next group.
I agree, and I think by holding these guys at AAA, we're stunting the growth of the people behind them. Right?
Yep.
If these guys that are never going to get playing time for us are sitting at AAA taking all those AAA at bats, then the guys at AA, the guys at single A are never going to see
Yeah,
that, and
absolutely.
we're never going to know what we truly have behind that. And again, I agree, it makes perfect sense to move on from these guys. We just have to figure out who has value and where. The pitchers are different, but the position players, we have a ton of them, and some of those
Mm-hmm.
guys are going to be hard to move on from, right? I mean, like we have some really good position players in several spots. So maybe, if there's one or two you don't want to get rid of, okay, don't get rid of them, but move on from some of the other guys, or move on from a couple of the guys that are on the MLB roster that other teams are interested in, if that's available, if that's an option. I I just don't know when the trades are going to start coming. I have a feeling with winter meetings starting going on next week, more of these trades rumors and things are going to start swirling. We're going to get a lot more details.
Mm-hmm.
I really so one of the things Yamamoto's brought up is that he wants to go to a team that has at least one other Japanese player on it.
Yep. Which
Something
there's not a
else.
lot of them. It's wherever Otani signs it, it's us. Like,
hmm As far as big name Japanese players, yeah.
right.
Uh, and then the other big thing that I keep coming back to is his agent. You know who else Yamamoto's agent is an agent for?
I'm gonna go out on a limb and I'm gonna say Newt, but that's like,
Nolan Arenado.
hmm, hmm,
He's using the same agent as Arenado, who already has a good relationship with the Cardinals. Um, also, his agent had an was also the agent representing Stanton at the time that Stanton was traded to the Yankees. But his agent is the one who forced him into having a conversation with the Cardinals saying you need to
right,
at least talk to this team.
right.
So the agent thinks highly of the Cardinals. So like we could have a real chance if we actually put out a good number and a competitive number to Yamamoto. There's a
Oh yeah,
lot of things in our favor right now. And
right.
if we don't do it, I think we'll be kicking ourselves down the road because I think the price for him is going to be a bargain with what he's going
Oh,
to produce. Again, I mean, he's by far the
right.
youngest pitcher on the market.
It's a bargain from the sporting perspective and from the business perspective. It's really a smart thing to do. And I know that he hasn't played in MLB yet, but Japanese pitchers have historically transferred very well into the MLB pitching landscape. So I'm not as concerned about that.
If you're
Um,
pitching for a sub 2 ERA in Japan, you're probably going to pitch to a sub 3 ERA in the MLB.
right,
You'll be
right. You're
fine.
going to be fine. You're going to be fine. Um, so I have two things that I wanted to mention here real quick. That just like while you were talking, thoughts that came into my head. Number one, so Katie Wu, who we talked about offline right beforehand, and some of the work she's been doing covering the Cardinals. She made a lot of comments during the Sonny Gray press conference, and some of her takeaways. And one, she said Sonny Gray was killing it, and I've read a lot of his quotes, definitely saying the right things. But the other thing she said was, it's really supporting the notion that the Cardinals are still viewed by players as a winning franchise and as a place that you want to play at. And so when you mentioned that about Stanton's agent, like that just made me think of that, and it's pertinent. The other thing, okay, just out of curiosity, who's your favorite active player on the Cardinals?
Favorite active player?
Yeah, favorite active player. Yeah,
Yeah, so that's changing now because it's been Wayno
right.
for some years. But if I had to just pick with one guy right now, I'm probably going with Newt. I
Hmm.
absolutely love Newt.
I can't argue with that. That's a great choice. Mine's Nolan Arenado. So Arenado was my favorite non-Cardinal player when he was with the Rockies. Like in the whole league, was my favorite non-Cardinal. And when the news broke that we were trading for him and that that the Rockies were paying us to take him, uh, let's just say that there were customers who heard some curse words and of joy that they probably shouldn't have.
You
I
were
was
you were
hyped.
blowing up my phone for like 72 hours after that was
Yeah,
announced.
I was hyped, man. I was ready to go. So for me, it's Arenado, no questions.
Yeah, I knew that though.
You knew that, but the listeners didn't know that, and I feel like they should get to know me on a personal level.
You're right. This is for the listeners. This isn't
This
for
is
me.
for the listeners,
I
right?
should stop being so conceited. I'm an asshole.
You're not saying anything I don't already know, but again, it's
This is
for
for
the
the listeners.
listeners.
We need to let them
Yes,
know.
right. And that's our episode title. It's for the
It's for the
listeners.
listeners. Uh, so I there's a lot of things that I can see happening with the Cardinals still. I think the trades are it's really what's going to come down to trades. The reliever market is not going to take shape till later in the offseason. It usually doesn't. And
Right. That's the
so
last
you
thing that falls out. Yeah.
it's the
Because there's just
last
so
thing
many
that
of them.
falls into place. There's so many relievers out there, and maybe you find a guy or two that you really like, and you pick them up earlier than others because you have a
Sure.
need. We have 3 to 5 guys that are going to be okay, but really you need 6 to 8 solid guys in your bullpen to be really truly be a contender and not a pretender. And so I think that's important.
Well,
Do
and
you
I
think,
also,
how do you feel about, because in my mind, when I look at our bullpen, I feel like we have the potential to have eighth, ninth inning covered.
oh, for sure. For sure.
But
It's
but
it's getting from
that sixth and
five to
it's that
seven.
fifth,
Yeah.
sixth, seventh is where I get nervous.
Yeah. So let me point this out to you. So I've had, while we've been talking, I've had our prospect list pulled up, okay? And our top 10 prospects have, I don't know, about half of it's pitching. Um, if you look at it from like a when they're projected to make it into the majors, it skews even heavier to the pitching list. Um, but like Tink Hence is expected to be major league ready next year. Tekoa Roby expected to be major league ready next year. Gordon Graceffo expected to be major league ready right now to next year. Roberse expected to be major league ready next year. Cooper Hierpe, an extra year there, 2025. But I'm looking at Michael McGreevy also. He's number 12 on our list. So I'm looking at all these guys and I'm thinking some of these guys might be ready to be in the pen, you know, spots here, long relief, maybe. Um, it would not surprise me if some of these guys start getting real looks next year.
So in a perfect world for me, I think if we're truly competing and we are playing to the fact that we're playoff caliber team, or we're looking like we're going to go to the playoffs, I think Tink Hence is coming out of the pen for us. I think
Oh,
I look at
absolutely.
Tink Hence as a Adam Wainwright type in his first year with the team and doing those kind of things and filling in, and has the stuff to be a closer if needed, but long term projects as a starter. I
Mm-hmm.
think your sixth starters, if you will, is going to be a combination of probably McGreevy, could
Yeah.
be McGreevy and Graceffo. But those two, I think, are your quote unquote sixth starters when you need, and when somebody goes down and you need starts for, the 2 or 3 starts in a spot of a rotation. Um, and that's assuming we trade or move on from Mats, right? Because if we sign another
Right.
person and Mats is in the pen, Mats can always spot start.
Right. Right. And I mean, that's the whole point, right? When you look at most of the teams that are successful right now, right? They're successful because they have 6 or 7 guys who can be starters for them, right? It's a 162 game season. It's like 7 months long. It's long. People get hurt. People get fatigued. Like you need extra guys that can fill in spots in the rotation. And that's something we've been missing for several years. And it was really bad last year, don't get me wrong. But for several years, we've been lucky to have 3 guys we could rely on. Um,
I look at the trades we've made at the deadline the last few years prior to last year. Take last year out of the equation.
right.
But the previous few years, every time we're scrounging up some pitchers who are about
Yeah.
on expiring contracts, trying to just piece together a rotation to hold ourselves into the playoff race to get into the playoffs.
Yeah.
And we screwed the pooch by not signing Quentin back last year. When I mean, he was one of our best starters. I still think we should have re-signed him. Why am I
Resigned
blanking on
who?
what's his name?
You said Quentin, and I'm completely lost.
Not Quintana. I said Quentin,
Oh,
but I'm trying to get
Quintana.
his full
Yeah.
name in there. I'm
Yeah, but
It's
he
been a
spent
long day.
most of this year hurt. I
He
don't even know how
I
he
get
ended up
that.
doing. He was hurt for
I
a
don't
long,
know
but
how he did,
but
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 on the
re-signing him was the right
surface,
move, not knowing that he was going to get hurt. Like you should have
yes,
re-signed him.
for
Just
what he
because he
did,
got hurt doesn't make you
for
right.
you, like, yeah, it's just one of those things. I mean, like, he ended up pitching in 13 games. He had a 3.57 ERA. So, like, he wasn't great, right? But he wasn't bad. I mean, he still gave you 13 starts, even though he was hurt for most of the year. That's 13 starts with a 3.5 ERA that we desperately could have used.
Right. Right.
Um, and,
Well,
and
hell,
so,
listen to this. Steven Matz only made 17 starts, 3.86 ERA.
mhm. Yeah. But if you paired those two up as one pitcher, right? That's a season worth of a pitcher right there.
Yeah. 30 starts, 3.7-ish ERA, 3.8-ish ERA. Like that's what we need so badly.
So when we didn't re-sign Quintana, that hurt.
That hurt.
And but I mean, like I just keep looking back, and you can find example of it after example of it after example of it. You really over the last 5 or 6 years, and we pick up a pitcher, we sign a pitcher, we trade for a pitcher at the deadline, just trying to will ourselves into the playoffs. We have not had a like solid pitching core since like 2013.
So I read an article at ESPN last year, earlier this year, like March, spring training time. And it said, what is the one? It was basically like the premise was, what is the position that your team has struggled with the longest? Right. And for the Cardinals, it was starting pitching. And it was like, it basically went back to the 90s. And I'm like, yeah, there was like a 5-year period between like 2007 ish to like 2013 ish, where like I was pretty happy with our starting pitching. But outside of that 5 years, we've always struggled with pitching, like as a strength,
It's
as a strength.
we were really good. 03, 04 started to get good. 04 was pretty solid.
Yeah, 04.
Oh
We were good
five,
everywhere in 04. That
oh
team
five
was
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 the
solid.
04 and 05 were both 100-win teams.
Right.
Both had good starting rotations. 05 was the first year of Carp. That was his Cy Young year.
Mm-hmm.
Our starting pitching was pretty solid. Our starting pitcher was not as good as you'd want it to be, but was still decent. In 06, we made that run.
Right.
07, when Wayno moved into the, I mean, then we essentially had Carp and Wayno, and we were just piecing together three guys behind them.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't like pitching was a strong suit. We had two guys. We had
Right.
two dogs
Right.
and everyone
And
else.
and right, we had two very good pitchers, and then it was just whatever else. But and at the time, two very good pitchers was all you needed, right?
When you get
that
to the
could carry you.
playoffs, that's all you need, right? Like you
Right.
can you can win in the playoffs if you have two absolute ace type guys.
And we did. And we did. But I mean, I don't know. I don't think we've done enough to be a contender next year.
Oh,
Like a playoff
I still
contender.
put us in the pretender category. I
Yeah.
think we're enough to potentially push to get into the playoffs. Wild
Yeah.
card type team with where we're at now.
Well,
I
this goes
think we'll compete for a wild card, but I don't see us, even if we get in, like there's no point, right? It's false hope.
well, and I don't think this will surprise you, but I don't see us getting into the playoffs as a wild card. I could see us getting into the playoffs as the central winner. Um, but like being worse than like at least one of the wild card teams. Like,
It's My concern is the Cubs.
yeah, but the
They're going
Cubs
out
lost
and
Ellie, they lost Stroman. Like, I mean, they're going after Otani, but like Otani's also not pitching next year.
they're going after Otani. They're going after Yamamoto. They're going after a lot of people. They just pulled Council away. I If not next year, the Cubs they're going to throw enough money out there. They're going to be competing, if not next year, the year after. And that's a concern, right? We've been able to say, hey, we've got a chance to get in the playoffs every year because we play in the Central. Well, now what if the Central becomes competitive again, like it did in 2013, 2014, 2015, when it was us, the Pirates, and the Cubs? I mean, all just beating
Right.
down on each other
Right.
all season.
Well, and what was crazy about that season was it was like a 101 team, a 99 win team, a 98 win team. Like we all did very, very well despite having to beat up on each other. Um, I don't know. Losing Stroman, losing Belly is a big deal for that team though. Like there's a there's a lot of question marks there. I think the Brewers are kind of looking like a rebuild right now.
Hmm.
I think the
I agree with that.
Reds are, you
The Reds
never
aren't
really
sure what
know.
they're going to be.
Right.
And
You
I
never
think
really know what the Reds are going to be. Yeah.
they've got some great young players. Ellie is a stud, exciting guy
Oh,
to
yeah.
watch, but I mean,
Yeah.
incredibly streaky. But he's young. If he
I,
gets some
I,
consistency in his bat, he's going to be scary.
yeah. I could see the Reds winning the division next year. It'll be good. Here's the thing. Okay. I am way too fucking excited for next season as I should be for the signings we've made so far. You're muted. Yeah.
I know
There.
I was working on clicking it because I had a cough, but I'm not excited about next season yet, right? I'm intrigued to see what happens. I'm excited for the next 30 days. I'm excited for to see what happens in December, leading up to the new year, because I think that's what's going to tell me whether or not this team is going to be ready to go or not. And it's going to tell me what to expect for the team for the next year. If we go into December and we make a trade or two, or we make a big splashy signing, we pull in somebody like a Monty or a Yamamoto, yeah, you bet your ass I'm going to be all in for opening day.
Right.
If we
Would
go in
you
and we sign another 37-year-old pitcher just to have just in case, I'm going to be like, we're rebuilding and we're building up for the next year, which I don't understand because we said we are going in for it this year.
Fair? What if we don't sign any more starting pitching? What if we bring this rotation we have, which is Gray, Michaelis, Matz, Gibson, Lynn, in whatever order, but we make some trades for more reliever depth? How do you feel about that? And let's say we trade away mostly prospects. We keep the vast majority of our major league core intact.
Depends on what prospects we trade away. Because at the end of the day, I need that rotation to carry me not just into the playoffs, but through the playoffs.
Yeah.
And at the ages they are, injury, somebody's going to get hurt for some length of time. And if we've traded away some of our better pitching prospects in the process of getting some of these relievers or whoever else, we're not going to have the depth we need to replace those guys. Again, yeah, we had four of these guys pitched 180 innings last year, but they're all a year older, and it's not to say that they're all going to do it again. Um, every every arm, every body is one pitch away from the amount of strain they put on their forearms, their shoulders every time they throw a ball 90 miles an hour. It we need more starters, and I'm not going to feel better until we either sign or find another true starter. And for me, it's finding a starter and still having at least one, maybe two of our major league ready pitchers in the minors, that are ready to come up this year when injury happens.
Yeah. Yeah. My final thought on this is that our rotation as it's currently constructed for next year is not a rotation that will be a competitive staff in the playoffs. I think it is when you combine it with our fielding players, our position players, if we get back to the defense that we had before, if we continue to be good offensively as we have been, I think we could grind out success in the regular season. But I like, yeah, I want to be a fan of a team that's good in the regular season. And I don't want to complain about being good in the regular season because we've been very spoiled with regular season success over our lifetimes. But it's about championships, right? Like, I want to win the World Series. I want to be competitive in the playoffs. I I don't really care if we sneak in as the wild card or if we go in as division champs if we fall out the first round. I want to go deep, and our staff as it's currently built is not a going deep staff.
I agree, 100%. It's I want to see if I want to feel like if we get into the playoffs, we have a chance. And those mid to late 2000s teams, those early 2010, 2011, 2012, 2013, you felt every year like you had a
Yeah.
chance to win it all.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we haven't felt that way in a while. Even
No.
when I mean, we've lost out in the first round too many times. So more to come on this, obviously. I will, I guess, again, I think this next month is going to tell us an awful lot about where we're gonna end up.
Yeah. Yeah. I 100% agree. And honestly, I have nothing left to say right now, unless you give me something very thought provoking. But
Um, just quick thing, Daniel Descalso is one
oh,
one
I
signing
do have
that they
something
did
else to
make as
say.
well. Daniel Descalso was signed. I didn't see if they've officially released what position he's going to have, but he is going to be on the coaching staff. And our
Uh,
coaching staff is very light
I
for
think
Major
it's
League
the
Baseball. For those of you
bench
that aren't
coach.
aware, we have a lot of we have we have way fewer coaches on our major league staff than most major league teams. I think like the Braves had almost double the amount of coaches we do last year.
Right. We're
So
very thin. Yeah.
we're very thin there. So we have there is the opportunity there to bring some of those in. But we did bring in Daniel Descalso. For those of you who don't know who that is, you're probably not a Cardinals fan or haven't been super long. He was a
Yeah.
utility
Bench coach.
infielder player for the Cardinals for you know that same stretch we were just talking about, late 2000s, early 2010s. He was on that 2011 World Series winning team. He knows what it takes to win. He's a former Cardinal, and yeah, him being on the bench coach, I think, could be a really good calming presence for the team.
Right. And not only does he know what it means to win, but he knows what it means to be a St. Louis Cardinal. And that's what's important right now. Right. And I think that's also part of why it's so important that Lance Lynn was one of the guys that they brought back. Right. We need to get back to our roots. We need to get back to who we are, uh, and be, grinding it out every day and just enjoying the freaking game too. It wasn't fun last year. I want it to be fun again. That's all.
Yeah, they need to bring back Joe Kelly.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Put me on. I've been on the fan of sign Joe Kelly, bring Joe Kelly back since the day we traded him. That
Absolutely.
guy is
Huge Joe Kelly
he
fan.
love Joe Kelly, amazing dude.
And
Also somebody who
and
does a lot of like team camaraderie type things. If you guys are not aware, you go back and look up the Cardinals Hump Day tradition. There was a time when Joe Kelly actually had camel suits that he had rookie pitchers and things wearing in and out of stadiums on Wednesdays on road trips to celebrate
and
Hump Day.
and he has the greatest suspension of all time. And so his suspension was frowning at the Astros after I'm pretty sure he threw at him. But um also, did you see him trade his jersey for the mariachi band jacket?
No,
Okay,
but
so a
that
few
sounds like
years
something Joe. That's a very
right,
Joe Kelly move.
right. So you should know that Joe Kelly's mom is Mexican. Okay. So he traded his jersey for a mariachi band jacket that was in the stands, like a mariachi band was in the stands. The Dodgers win the World Series. He wears the mariachi band jacket as his suit jacket to the White House. Like there are some amazing photos of this. Like you've got to Google it as soon as we end this. Okay.
Oh, I will. I will.
Um,
God, that's fantastic.
he's also a free agent, so he's available.
Yeah. Oh no, I know he is. I'm aware. We keep talking about bullpen signings, and he's the one guy that I have on my list. I haven't said anything because I haven't wanted to jinx it, but that's who I want.
Right. Right.
Um, we have you heard any more on Molina? I know for a while we were talking They would talked
Uh,
about Molina coming in. I haven't seen or heard much, but I didn't know if you had heard or seen anything that I've missed.
the only thing I've heard is that they're still in talks with him. It sounds like the issue is the time commitment. I'm reading a little bit in between the lines. What they're trying to figure out is pay naturally, but also what kind of time commitment would make sense for him and for the team. So that really sounds like the biggest holdup. Like he obviously doesn't want to be a guy that's involved day to day with the team. His other endeavors are, I think, rather well known. So he's got a lot of, hands in a lot of pots, a lot of things that he's involved in. Um, and I think they just kind of have to figure that out. What I would like to see is I'd like to see him with the pitching staff in spring training. And then I would like to, see him check in once a month, once a month, spend a week with the team, with the pitchers. I think that's a good place to start for us.
I think I think that would be good. I think you don't need Molina. He's a very strong personality. If he's somebody who's with the team year round, he's gonna run the team, right? And I don't think Ollie needs that at this point. If Ollie really is your guy, but I think he's somebody who can bring a lot of help to it. I think he needs to, come in when pitchers, catchers report, go through some stuff, stay through the first week or two of spring training, and then check back in. Yeah, like you said, once a month, spend a week with the team, and then go back and do his thing where he can really help work through some of these guys with situations they've come up on, and they can help talk through things. And how would you approach this? What do you see here? And I think
Right.
that's where he's going to be most valuable, at least for what else, everything else that he has going on. I think that's a great opportunity for him. I tell you who
Yeah.
I'm still going to keep pushing for a hitting coach, and I know it won't happen, but go get Pujols.
I'm here for it. Let's do it. Let's go.
Let's sign him. Also, for all you listeners who are also watching, if you enjoy watching us, you've probably noticed we're wearing some exciting new gear that we were talking about. So we do have some hats and shirts that have been made with our logo on them. We'll be posting pictures sometime here shortly, and with some prices if anybody's interested in trying to get some of our exciting Lunatics gear. I wanted to go ahead and throw that out there. John's got a real fancy beanie there. I've got a
I'm a
t-shirt and a
fancy
ball cap
guy.
on. You're something. Um, fancy is a word, maybe
It
not
does
the
not
word.
describe me, but I did use it in
No,
a sentence.
I'm surprised you even knew what that word was, to be honest. So
I'm real highly educated.
yeah, I'm well aware of your
You're
education.
equally educated.
Technically you're more educated until this into this spring. So
Debatable. Offline. Offline conversation.
But yeah, no, I'm excited to see what the next month brings. I think there's a lot of good things happening with the Cardinals. And, at the end of all of this, we can always be thankful as much as, we disagree with Mo and how things are ran in the Cardinals organization. At least they're not owned by one Stan Kroenke. And for that, Stan Kroenke, we hate you. Good night, everyone.